can't be the only person that puts eyeshadow on and then it's melted off an hour into my day. And as much as people say like eyeshadow primer or primer doesn't matter, I am convinced that eyeshadow primer does help your eyeshadow last longer. And you can argue with me till you're blue in the face. It's not going to change my mind because I have seen legitimate results. So first of all, I do have to mention that I 100% the way that I prep my eyelids is first, they do need to be clean and dry. Second, I actually go in with some Coty Airspun not eyeshadow. Oh my gosh, I'm getting too into this. I go in with some Coty Airspun translucent powder, put that on my dry, clean eyelids, and then prime my eyelids. Let that dry and apply my eyeshadow. I mentioned that I have to prime my eyelids in order for my eyeshadow to last. I am telling you what, if I skip one of these steps, my eyeshadow also doesn't last. So that just tells you something. I have such oily eyelids. I don't know what it is, but eyeshadow, my eyeballs eat it. That's probably why my eyelids are so, that's probably why my eyes are so dark. It's all of the colors that just get sucked into my eyes. I don't know. But regardless, my eyeshadow won't stay unless I do these steps. However, if I just put the Airspun on it, the Coty Airspun, and don't put eyeshadow primer, same thing happens. So I really need that combination of items in order to get my eyeshadow to look fantastic. By the way, if you're wondering what's on my eyes, it is the Natasha Denona Mini Xenon palette. I really like it, but that's not what we're going to talk about today. So I have been testing a whole bunch of eyeshadow primers, and I'm going to talk about some of my favorites, some of the fails, and some of the ones that I just felt like were meh, but not worth your money, okay? So, actually, I'm going to organize these really quick, and then I'll be right back, because I feel like if I don't organize them, I'm going to be, you know, doinking around all day. We're going to start with some of the eyeshadow primers that I absolutely cannot get behind. And part of the reason for this is because saving the best for last, but also because as much as I wanted to love these, they never gave me what I wanted from them. Because like I said, I have incredibly oily eyelids. If I skip one step, my eyelids don't work great. So yeah, my eyelids don't work great. That's what it is. The first thing that I'm going to say is so many people are like, just use concealer. I just picked a random concealer, but I have never. This one is the Conceal and Perfect. I don't know that I've ever actually used this one on my eyelids, but I've never actually used a concealer on my eyelids that kept it from staying great. And that could be because I look for different things in my concealer than I look for my eyeshadow. For my concealer, I do need it to be extra hydrating. I need it to be really lightweight. I need it to you know, feel like skin. But for eyeshadow primer, I need that bad boy to stay. And so I think part of it is that for me, concealer just doesn't grip enough. So the first one I would just skip. I don't use concealer on my eyes. It never works out the way I want it to. The second one is the Hard Candy Long Wear Eyeshadow Primer. This is just, it's so slippy. It's so slippy on the eyes that your eyeshadow tends to disappear way too quickly. The only benefit is that it's cheap. I'll say that, it's cheap. Next we have the Smudge Proof Eyeshadow Base from NARS. I wanted to like this so badly. You have no idea how many times I got this out, applied it, and was like, it's gonna work. It's gonna work this time. It's gonna be great. I'm gonna like it. I love NARS. I really like their lip crayons. I like their blush. I think NARS is a really good brand. And so in my head, I was like, this will be beautiful. It will, it will, it will. This is probably one of the worst of the video. Every single time I used it, my eyeshadow was gone within an hour or two. Every single time. And by gone, I mean like gone. Like I might have a little bit left in my crease, but it had all migrated to the crease and been sucked up by my eyeballs. All right, next we have the Ulta Beauty Matte Eye Primer. This one wasn't the worst, but there was nothing that stood out about this product that made me think, this makes my eyeshadow last great. Like, it lasted a little bit longer than an hour, but not by much. Just an okay product. Like, it's not one of the most expensive, but it's also not great, so why would I waste my money? All right, the About Face Beauty Eyeshadow. I honestly don't know why I thought this was going to work. That's all I have to say about it. I don't know why I thought this was going to work. because everything that I knew indicated that it wouldn't be that great. First of all, it goes on, it's so emollient when it goes on. And I was like, okay, like it might still work. It might still work. No, it was just, it didn't really do enough to stop my eyeshadow from creasing. All right, next we have the P. Louise eye base. Now I want to clarify. I know that technically an eye base is different than an eye primer. I understand that. However, I kind of put them in the same category because eye base, eye primer, essentially you're getting your canvas ready for working. So in my head, that makes them the same. Every single time I used this, I thought, and again, this isn't actually the worst one. The worst one is probably the nurse, but every single time I use this, I'm like, this looks so heavy, and it doesn't do enough to really make it worth my while. But like it sits pretty heavily on the skin too. I don't know if you can see that, but it does. It sits really heavily on the skin, and I just always found that it was fine, but it didn't make my makeup last longer, and it made my eyelids look kind of gross. Okay, so this is probably one of the best of the worst, okay? So the Too Faced Shadow Insurance, I had heard raving comments about this, and I was like, okay, I'll try it. This one probably gives me a good solid 3 hours, but I don't know if you've heard me mention this before. I work 16-hour days sometimes. I need my eyeshadow to last. And I don't necessarily expect it to last for 16 hours, but I expect my eyeshadow to last a good solid 8. This lasts maybe 3. Like, it's fine. It lasts longer than some of the other ones, but it just doesn't give me the oomph that I'm looking for and the oomph that I deserve from my eyeshadow primer, especially for being as expensive as this one is. Come on. It's also, I didn't do this with the first few because I just didn't want to, but it also is, it's super emollient too, and the dry down isn't great, which probably it contributes to how good that things last. I told you I really do need things to like dry down, and it's mostly dried down, but it still has just a little bit of moisture that I can feel in it, which I think is probably why it didn't last all that great. All right. Now moving into the medium category. These are ones that lasted a little bit better. However, they're still not my favorite. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this category. I only have 2 that I'm like, holy grails, swear by. So I have 5 that I feel good about. I'll use them. They're fine. I'm not going to repurchase them, but they work well enough. Okay. The first one is this NYX eye base. Now, some of you might say, huh, Shell, this one is the same as the P. Louise one. And I will say, this one has similar properties. I'm trying to dig some out with my nail. This one has similar properties to the P. Louise one. However, it is more like grease paint that dries down a little bit more. If you know, you know. It does sit heavily sometimes, but I feel like it does work into the skin a little bit more. Now, the reason I say this one's good, not great, is because it is a little bit like grease paint. It doesn't always adhere great. I can get a good few hours out of this. Excuse me. I can get a good few hours out of this, but it's not my most long-lasting eyeshadow primer. The same rules kind of apply to this City Colors stuff. So, I mean, I just happened to pick up the yellow one, but I feel the same way about all the colors. This one is fine. It will help my makeup stay in place for a few hours. It is not the best eyeshadow base that I've ever tried, but I like it better than the P. Louise one. It's not quite as heavy as that one. So if I like place this down, it's just not as heavy in consistency. I feel like it blends out a little bit easier. Now, that's not to say it's great, but sometimes you do need a colored eyeshadow base to like make your makeup look good. I would say that both the NYX and the City Canvas, I'm going to use that for a night out. I'm not necessarily going to use that for if I'm going to be at work all day, because it's not that good. It's just decent, right? Now what we get into, and I kind of think that these ones are a step above those other two, but they only really last about 5 hours. And like I said, I need a little bit more from my eyeshadow primer. So the first one is the Milani eyeshadow primer. I think that this works well. The second is the Fenty eyeshadow primer. And the third is this ABH eyeshadow primer. Now I have the same gripe with all of them. Although my eyeshadow doesn't melt off my face with any of these, around hour 3 to 5, I start getting some serious creasing. Not to the point where it's completely worn off my eyeshadow, like some of the ones that I ranked pretty badly, but to the point where I'm like, okay, I would have to go in to touch it up to make it look good. And 3 to 5 hours is decent wear, but I do want just a touch more. Alright, now for the moment you've been waiting for. Alright, probably not, but regardless, my two favorite eyeshadow primers are, first, the Wet n Wild Photo Focus eyeshadow primer. I love this one. Like, and it's cheap. This is one of the few Wet n Wild products in general that I'm like, this is so worth it, and I don't understand why more people don't talk about it. This stuff is amazing. My eyeshadow will literally last a 16-hour day. As long as I'm not like rubbing out my eyes or, you know, sweating up a storm, this will last all day. And then the other one that I love and I swear by is the original Urban Decay Primer Potion. And it's the same thing. I never can decide which one of these two I actually like better, because there are things that I prefer about each of them. Same thing though, my eyeshadow will last all day. I think a few things to note is, first of all, I don't know about you guys, but the jewel on the Urban Decay Primer Potion, as I use it more and more, and I use this stuff, the gem always pops off. I always pop off the gem and I crack the base of this. And maybe it's because I use it so much. And I also hate this kind of applicator. I always find that I have to like squeeze the tube to be able to scoop out a little bit more. So, I mean, but this one I actually think is slightly less long lasting than the Urban Decay one. Slightly long, like this one is slightly longer lasting, but they are just both so good. And this one's a lot cheaper too. I have to say, I still buy both of them, and it kind of depends on the mood that I'm in, which one I reach for. But these are just so good. They will lock your eyeshadow into place all day long. If you, like me, have the worst eyelids possible and everything smudges off of them, I stopped that. But try one of these. I mean, start with this one because it's cheaper. But if you find that this one works, I'm gonna bet that this one works too. I think that they're both absolutely worth the money. And it's funny because they're not actually from super popular brands right now. Like, you don't ever hear, like in the drugstore, the hero products are always from NYX and from e.l.f. But this is Wet n Wild. And then the same thing with Urban Decay. Like, the hero products right now are from like Tower 28, Cali Ray, Charlotte Tilbury. But for me, these are unless someone like wows me, and I mean wows, I'm probably never going to be switching from these two gems. They're my favorite. They're my like, oh, I love them. Now, I will say, you do still have to prep your eyelids. I mentioned I clean my eyelids, I powder them, and then I put on the eyeshadow primer. One thing to note is with eyeshadow primer, less is more. You want like just enough that you can kind of smear it all over your eyelid. And you want to make sure that it's dry before applying your eyeshadow, otherwise you're not going to get optimal results. But if you've been wondering how to keep your eyeshadow all day without creasing or without it disappearing off of the face of your face, you have to try these two. If you don't have quite as big of a problem with eyeshadow primer, I recommend some of these other ones like the ABH eye primer, the Fenty Beauty one. The Milani one is also really good if you're trying to do drugstore. But if you're looking for the best of the best, I definitely recommend the Wet n Wild Photo Focus eyeshadow primer or the Urban Decay Original Primer Potion. Hope this was helpful for you. I post at least a video a week and many shorts a week. Hopefully you were able to get something from this. I will see you guys later. Bye!